Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Richie and this is part 2 of I played every Call of Duty game in 2021. So if you want to watch part 1, the link for that will be in the description below. Last time we ended things with Call of Duty World at War, which means Modern Warfare 2 is next. So buckle up, drop a like, look out for spoilers, and I hope you enjoy. I cannot tell you how many times I watched this trailer. I showed it to anyone who would listen. I remember showing it to my sister, someone who hadn't touched a video game since 1996. The hype I had for this game was simply unreal, and when I finally got it, I went straight to work. Needless to say, I was excited to boot this up again and play through the campaign that I hold near and dear to my heart. Truthfully, I was ready to remove the rose-tinted glasses and experience this story as honestly as I could, which was a hard ask because the nostalgia is very real when it comes to this game. Going back to 2009, all of my friends were back online and we'd play this game for hours every night. And when they weren't around, I was playing Spec Ops and trying to beat the campaign on veteran mode to get every Xbox achievement I could. Even then, I remember thinking that this was one of the best video game sequels through and through. And I haven't even talked about the game's story yet. After the events of Modern Warfare 1, where you kill Imran Zakhaev, a new Russian ultra-nationalist rises to power, Vladimir Makarov. Following Zakhaev's footsteps, Makarov is a cunning, terrifying villain who wants to take America down and will ignite a third world war to do it. In the early hours of the game, he frames the US for one of the biggest massacres ever. From that point, he becomes your entire world. You spend the entire story in his shadow, always one step behind. Sounds like a wild goose chase, but it's an intense one filled with false leads, nuclear deterrence, and a major betrayal. You know the one. Throw in the plots of Red Dawn and The Rock mixed with an incredibly dramatic ending, and you have yourself Modern Warfare 2. Honestly, I'm just flustered thinking of what to talk about next. The multiplayer and how broken the guns were? Or how we went from 3 kill streaks to 15, including a nuke? How about how good it felt to see Price again, and how badass it felt to break him out of the gulag? Oh, or how cool it was to play alongside Soap and his little mohawk. Or what about when the White House needs saving and your whole squad gets EMP'd in the process? Every mission and nearly every moment matters in this game. It's truly over the top in every conceivable way. If I keep talking about it, I'll pass out. So let's move on. It was at this point in time where the idea of the Call of Duty cycle felt comfortable to me. One year we'd get an Infinity Ward game, and the next year we'd see what Treyarch was up to. While I was always looking forward to whatever Modern Warfare had planned, it was nice to have something else to play as I waited. Only this time for me, it felt like Treyarch's newest game was in direct competition with the Modern Warfare series. Call of Duty Black Ops was launched in late 2010, and while I remember being excited for a new COD, I wasn't exactly sure what to expect this time. Treyarch had finally ditched the World War II titles, not for a modern setting, but rather the 60s. The Cold War is in full swing, and badass characters like Woods and Mason are introduced to keep the war from going hot. Treyarch definitely had fun when it came to the story, and especially how to tell it. This was a whodunit mystery full of paranoia, secrets, unreliable narrators, which was all massively different from Modern Warfare's action movie take. As soon as the game starts, you find yourself brainwashed and tied to a chair. A mysterious figure from behind glass is yelling at you about the numbers, and you and your character Mason have no idea what the f*** he's talking about. It's a disorienting and memorable intro, followed by a fun and flashy campaign. As the story progresses, it does a good job of unraveling the plot without giving everything away all at once. This makes for a cinematic ending where you finally figure out what happened to Alex Mason and what those goddamn numbers mean. Aside from the plot, the gameplay is solid. You have a cool choice of weapons that are fun and powerful. While they're not as fast and broken as Modern Warfare 2's, they hold their own in campaign and multiplayer. Black Ops also introduced some awesome spy weapons and gear, like the ballistic knife and crossbow. Perfect for the kinds of missions the campaign throws at you. Speaking of the missions, your Black Ops team is tight. It's usually just you, Woods, sometimes Bowman, and Reznov, whose involvement in the Black Ops series is way less straightforward than before. That's because there is no Reznov. Well, there is, and then there isn't. It's a little messy, but if you've seen Fight Club, it's almost the same logic. It's a roller coaster of a story and lives up to the hype, even in 2021. It kicked off its own grand story arc into the Call of Duty universe and at the same time expanded the zombies narrative. It also had awesome multiplayer. So while I was still waiting for Modern Warfare 3, I was all in on what Black Ops had to offer. Speaking of Modern Warfare 3, in 2011 when I picked up Modern Warfare 3, it was hard to accept that this might have been the last Modern Warfare game. There could never be a Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare 4, so I knew I had to make this one count. And of course it's awesome, even today. In Modern Warfare 2, we left off with Soap on the brink of death after a stab wound from stupid Shepard. I know a place where the only words I had to hold on to, hoping the story would pick up right after this very moment. While you get a glimpse of their whereabouts in the intro, instead you're treated to Black Tuesday as the first mission. In Introduction to World War III in New York City, you play as Frost, an army ranger who needs to stop a massive Russian signal jammer from the stock exchange. Starting up this campaign, I remember looking up and feeling dwarfed by the environment for the first time in a Call of Duty game, and how creepy it felt to simulate warfare on city streets I had walked on before. But also, I couldn't help but notice how cool my M4 sounded, and how vibrant the game looked, and oh hello hybrid sight, looking good. 2 minutes in and I was already invested. But while I patiently played this first level, I couldn't help but wonder, where's Makarov? Are Soap and Price safe?
What color is my underwear?
My patience paid off with the very next mission. We learned that Soap and Price are not okay, and that they're now the two most wanted men in the world after killing Shepard when the world thought he was a hero. You spend the campaign not only evading all of Russia, but traversing the rest of the world to try to corner Makarov. Along the way, Paris falls to a massive chemical attack, the Russian president's daughter is kidnapped, you're running away from sandstorms, and of course,
he killed Soap. He's gone, Mac.
One of the harshest memories across all games in the series, something I didn't think Infinity Ward would have the guts to do. They killed Soap. From there, I realized two things. One, Modern Warfare's main storyline was coming to a close, and two, the ending of this game was gonna be unforgettable. I knew Captain Price would do what he had to do to stop Makarov because he f***ed up and made it personal. Boy, was I right. The final mission where you track down Makarov is yet another highlight moment in the series. Price and Yuri are equipped with Juggernaut suits, and they make their way to the top of a fancy, high-rise hotel where Makarov is hiding. I remember after hearing Price say, "This is for Soap," I gripped my controller and prepared for the end. It was like a chapter in my adolescence was coming to a close. This is something I and millions of others put our hearts into for 4 years, so to say the ending was bittersweet only scratches the surface. From 2011 to 2012, I spent most of my gaming hours grinding in the multiplayer, and for the first time, I reached max prestige. But it was a weird time for me where I dropped out of college, worked part-time at another crappy job, and wasn't sure what to do next. While I was figuring things out, Modern Warfare was a great distraction, so it wasn't all that bad. And before I knew it, things were back on track and another Call of Duty was coming out.
None of this surprises me.
As far as campaigns go, the announcement of Black Ops 2 was the first time I wasn't excited to jump right into the story. Starting with Modern Warfare 2, I would always try to play out the storylines first, then jump into the multiplayer after I felt familiar with the game's environments, characters, and weapons. But the gritty orange future tense plot simply didn't interest me. So that year, I didn't play it, and instead jumped right into multiplayer with everyone else. When I finally did start the story for the purposes of this video, I was nervous, but ready. I really enjoyed multiplayer and zombies. How bad could this campaign really be? The first few missions are a smooth transition from the first game. You play as Mason, now in the 1980s, and your first order of business is to find Frank Woods, who was presumed dead after Black Ops 1. But new intel from Laos says otherwise. I enjoyed these missions, but as I feared, the jump into the future missions had me less enthralled. You now play as Alex Mason's son, David. Your job in these future missions is to put a stop to an organization of revolutionists led by Raul Menendez. Menendez has had beef with America his whole life. The CIA killed his parents, and years later you catch him working for Kravchenko as a gun runner. This story spans decades and is played out by you, back and forth from past to future. You're put on the spot to make choices that branch into multiple endings. Some make you feel like you screwed up, and others feel just about right. There are even some mixed endings with a little bit of both.
What the f?
But while experiencing all of this in my first playthrough, I guess the problem was that I didn't care about the future's problems. We go from Woods and Mason tag teaming like the old times, to hearing Tony Todd from Candyman call everyone a cocksucker.
We finally got one over on this cocksucker. Squeezing Russia's balls. Get this cocksucker off my flight deck.
Ooh, got him.
We got him.
I felt disconnected from the plot every time I jumped back into the future. By the end, these future missions get a little better, but I always just wanted to get back to the 80s with Woods, Hudson, Mason. Not Session.
What the f?
Visually, the game also took a toll on my eyes in some parts. Character models repeat a lot, and I wasn't trying to notice this, but it just kept happening. It was distracting.
Hey, quit eyeballing the chicks. We gotta get our asses in gear. Let's move.
Some things I did appreciate were the multiple story endings, the silly rock band ending with Avenged Sevenfold, and the voice acting.
All right, let's go, bitch.
Most of the cast returns except for Hudson, who is actually played by Michael Keaton now.
He's headed to the house. We'll get him, but we do it as a team.
In the end, I enjoyed my time with Black Ops 2, but I think the campaign is overshadowed by the excellent multiplayer and zombies mode. So while it's not my favorite, I'll always have fond memories with it. Oh boy, here we go. Next up, I'll be discussing the handful of exclusive titles for the Nintendo DS. I'll be talking about these in a group since they share the same fundamental features like gameplay, graphics, and storytelling elements. Okay, to start, I want to mention that these were a lot of people's first ever Call of Duty games. Looking at the nostalgic comments on these gameplay videos honestly makes me smile. Not everyone had access to the mainline M-rated console titles like I did, so for a lot of people, it was these games or nothing at all. There are many crappy games that hold a place in my heart. As a kid, I didn't always have the latest consoles or games, so I kinda just played whatever I had over and over. That meant mastering even the shittiest of games just to see what the end would look like, or in a lot of cases, the next level.
Yippee-ki-yay!
I feel like this might be the experience for kids who played these DS games. Nostalgic, if flawed. The same could be said about the Call of Duty games on Wii, and I can personally speak to that. I have a younger cousin who loved World at War, and when I tried showing it to him on the Xbox 360, he just wanted to play the Wii version instead. Let's dig in. The controls are a headache. Obviously, there are a limited number of buttons on the DS, but I feel like the layout could have been utilized much better. Using the D-pad controls your horizontal movements, while the screen and stylus function as a mouse would. Sounds pretty innovative on paper, but in practice, it really isn't. The games themselves are not as bad as I thought. They're all spin-offs of their console counterparts. Some of them have familiar characters sprinkled in, but most of them are side stories set in the same universe. But given the platform, it's surprising what they were able to pull off. There are recognizable weapons, music tracks, and a light sense of familiarity with the environments. The voice acting is charmingly bad. I don't know if it's the mixing, but everyone just sounds like a teenager.
You're the demolitions expert, so clear this area of any explosives.
More and more of these titles were released, and they didn't change very much. If you're a Call of Duty superfan and are curious, maybe play one of these games, but these are hard to recommend to anyone else anymore. As for me, I don't think I'll be going back to these. My hand still hurts. Call of Duty Declassified on PS Vita was a surprise to me. This game was poorly reviewed. Critics said it was way too short, glitchy, and downright appalling. It made no waves in the gaming space and was written off as a throwaway title. The story takes place between Black Ops 1 and 2. You play as either Frank Woods, Alex Mason, or a CIA agent in a series of mini-missions, usually gathering intel, saving someone, or killing someone. Unfortunately, complaints about the game's story length are valid. Each mission can be completed in 5 minutes or less, and you can beat the entire game in less than an hour. Playing it for the first time in 2021, I bought a used copy for about $12, but I think I'd be pretty mad if I had to pay the full price of $49.99. It's simply not worth it. But for $12, I wasn't mad at all. Did you enjoy Black Ops 1 and 2 and want to squeeze a little more juice out of the story? Here you go. And yes, the missions are short, so I'd recommend the veteran difficulty for a fuller or at least longer lasting experience. But if we put the issue of story time aside, there's fun to be had here. It ties into Black Ops in some fun ways I didn't expect. Earlier when I was talking about Black Ops 2, I said the CIA killed Raul Menendez's father. Well, you actually get to play out that mission as a CIA agent. You watch as a teenage Raul Menendez gets away. And while it's a little weird, it was cool to use guns from both Black Ops and Modern Warfare 3. It also looks, sounds, and runs well because the PS Vita is awesome. If you're at all interested, I think you should try this for yourself. It's short, but there's some meat on these bones, and even an active multiplayer. I'm also going to quickly mention the Nokia N-Gage version. I won't be playing it because it's more of a collector's item nowadays. It was a cell phone / portable gaming console hybrid, and it had a port of Call of Duty on it. I did play it in high school, and it sucked. The screen is small, and there are a lot better games for that system. So I'll show you some footage here, but I will not be playing it this time around. Sorry. Every time I think about Call of Duty Ghosts, I think about Infinity Ward and how hard it had to be to follow up the Modern Warfare series. And I think this is the best they could do. Remember earlier when I said how players were sick of World War II games and how that led to the era of modern shooters? Well, this marks the point where those players started to get sick of modern shooters. Infinity Ward was in a pickle. On top of that, it was just hard to accept that the Modern Warfare series had come to a close. I remember somberly tuning into E3 that year to see what Infinity Ward could possibly do next. The stage show wasn't bad, but I just wasn't hyped. I couldn't even force it. They talked about Riley the dog too much, and I knew I wouldn't have the fullest experience if I wasn't playing on next-gen hardware, which, surprise, I had no money for. Plus, despite what I thought, this game was called Ghosts, but it wasn't about Ghost? I mean, I knew he was gone, but I was puzzled. November came and I scrounged up just enough money to buy the 360 version. It was the first time I bought a game with a second install disc, which somehow felt embarrassing. It's like if Xbox said, "Here you go, broke ass." I also went into this game alone. By this time in 2013, my old Xbox and COD friends weren't playing so much anymore. Regardless of everything trying to stop me from playing this, I popped it in and went straight to multiplayer, which left me unimpressed. For the first time, I felt like not enough had been done to prevent it from feeling like a copy and paste experience. I watched as the YouTubers I followed tried to keep up, but their excitement was gone, and it was contagious. Months later, I remembered that I hadn't tried the story mode yet. And I'm glad I remembered, because the campaign is a whole nother experience. As you start the game, you learn about the legendary Ghosts, an elite team of soldiers who took out their enemies 300 style, outnumbered but tactful. While these tales are harrowing, they're more of a myth, with no proof they even exist. After you learn of the Ghosts from your character's dad Elias, the game's story picks up in modern day San Diego, which has fallen to an attack from an orbital kinetic strike. Basically, space lasers. 10 years after the attack, Logan and his brother Hesh team up with their father Elias and other members of the military to defend what's left of the West Coast. When things get serious, their dad Elias stops playing and reveals that he is in fact a leader of the legendary Ghosts. I had a hunch he was a ghost, but I let the story do its thing. For the rest of the campaign, the team is on the hunt for Rourke, a brainwashed ghost who works for the bad guys called, drumroll please, the Federation. Once they capture Rourke, the ending is a bleak relief for these two, who essentially save the US from another strike from the Federation. And just when you think it's over, the game leaves you on a cliffhanger moment when Rourke comes back and drags Logan away to an unknown location. Years later, people were anticipating a sequel to Ghosts, but it never happened. Next time we'd hear from Infinity Ward, they had plans for Infinite Warfare instead. In fact, the next game wasn't going to be developed by Infinity Ward or Treyarch. That's where Call of Duty Advanced Warfare comes in. As soon as I heard that the next COD was taking place exclusively in the future, I was pretty bummed. The trailer for Advanced Warfare didn't pump me up, and the thought of jumping around with exo packs and multiplayer was the nail in the coffin. It felt weird. I normally at least tried to give every yearly Call of Duty a shot, at least for the story. But this was a weird time where the stars just didn't align for me. I still didn't have the newest console, I was back in college and broke, and Call of Duty in the future was the last thing on my mind. The series was also in a weird place with fans both sick of historical and modern settings, which didn't leave a clear place for the series to go, except the future. So when I picked up the game about a year later, I went in kind of numb, but ready to be proven wrong. At the very least, I could see the infamous press F to pay respect scene. That moment happens about 20 minutes into the game shortly after the first mission. You play as Private Jack Mitchell, and in the opening scene, Jack and his best friend and fellow Marine Will Irons are in South Korea helping to push an attack from the north. Just as they're about to complete their mission, Will's arm gets caught on a mobile missile launcher, and just before he can disarm it, it blows up. Will is gone and Jack is left with only one arm. After the infamous funeral scene, Will's father, Jonathan Irons, gives Mitchell his card and tells him that his private military company, Atlas, could use a guy like him. It's a terrible plug for his business at his son's funeral, but it's a great indicator of his character and an introduction to his company, Atlas. Of course, Jonathan Irons is a power-hungry asshole who wants nothing short of world dominance and will use Atlas to achieve it. It's actually a fun plot that could really be its own movie. The gameplay felt smooth and the new gadgets are fun to try out when traditional running and gunning fails. One of the standout memories of my playthrough includes the sound design. I can't describe it other than crunchy. It's really satisfying. The nice sound work also carries over to the suits, firing weapons, and the crumbling environment around you. The cinematic cutscenes are beautiful, with voice acting and mocap by Kevin Spacey and Troy Baker, whose performances were all top-notch. There weren't as many standout moments like in other COD games, but as a whole, I enjoyed the story and the performances. In some ways, it didn't feel like a Call of Duty game at all, and that's sort of the theme for the next few titles. I paid no mind to Black Ops 3 upon release. I was close to graduating, and when I heard they were going to continue with a futuristic direction, I was ready to quietly dismiss a whole nother year of COD. Plus, I still hadn't played Part 2's storyline. Turns out I didn't need to. Black Ops 3 was very loosely based on the events after Black Ops 2, taking place in the 2060s and featuring another mind-bending plot that involved AI, mind control, and existing in a simulation. To say that I was worried about starting this game is quite an understatement. I didn't only pass up this campaign until now, I avoided it. But considering how much I enjoyed Advanced Warfare, I went in with a clear head, hopeful that this game could change my mind. You play as Player, and in the very dark opening mission, you and your pal, Hendrix, need to rescue the Egyptian Prime Minister Said. Instead, what ends up happening is you get your arms ripped off. Oh my god, why? On the brink of death, in comes Stabler from Law & Order SVU to save you. You wake up on the train with Stabler, whose actual name is Taylor, sitting right in front of you, but only in your mind. This is where you're introduced to the Direct Neural Interface, or DNI for short. It's basically an implant that allows communication between other DNI users only in your mind, conscious or not. Right away, Taylor and the Black Ops team recruit you and drop you into training simulations based on failed missions from the past. The controls are unsurprisingly smooth and the futuristic environments are nicely realized. Things like wall running and double jumping work well within these set pieces, and nothing was really hard to learn. The story that I was so scared to face also turned out to be not that bad, or even that complicated. Basically, Taylor's Black Ops group are the good guys, but they have to pull off some bad things for the greater good, big picture stuff. In between missions, there's a hub that I didn't really care for. You can show off your collectibles, read mission logs, and wonder who the hell these random people are. It kind of slowed down the pace for me because they're unskippable. You can also customize your loadouts here, which again, I didn't care for. Call of Duties in the past have always set you up with a pretty good default loadout, and left you room to explore other weapons simply by picking them up off the ground. But here you can't even do that. What you pick is what you're stuck with.
What the hell? Oh my god, no way!
As you progress, you start to hear whispers of a frozen forest, a seemingly metaphoric place where everything is okay. In short, it exists, and it was designed by a man named Yusuf Salim. But Taylor and his Black Ops team are obsessed with finding this forest and will do anything to get into it. Why? Because the Black Ops team is infected with a DNI virus called Corvus. They think the source of the Corvus virus can be found within this frozen forest. And if they can get there, they'll be able to purge it from all of their systems. It's a little confusing for a Call of Duty game, but it makes for some fun moments in storytelling. When you finally reach the frozen forest and purge the Corvus virus, you come to, and Taylor's voice is still in your head. So basically, Player and Taylor successfully purge the virus, but Player's mind is sort of taken over by Taylor.
What's your name, soldier?
In the frozen forest.
I said, what's your name?
Taylor.
So Taylor might not be the best of guys. Anyway, I applaud this game's risks. The creative ending made it worth playing at least once. I still wouldn't call it a very approachable Call of Duty, but give it a shot if you want something a little off the beaten path. After merging with Neversoft Studios, the updated Infinity Ward team envisioned an all-new story set primarily in space. And since me and space still weren't getting along, I skipped Call of Duty this year too. But again, I went into this with a fresh perspective, reminding myself that I've been surprised by more than one Call of Duty campaign before. So I jumped in and hoped that Infinity Ward would not let me down. This game had some major advancements in the series, like seamless transitions from ground to air, nearly non-existent loading times, and a hub world straight out of Battlestar Galactica. It doesn't feel like Call of Duty, but I'm here for it. In the game's opening mission, the good guys are sent to secure some top secret weapons when they're stopped by the bad dudes and Admiral Koch, the most vapid villain in any Call of Duty game. Which sucks, cause he's Kit from Game of Thrones, isn't he? I think he's just written really poorly. I hated seeing this guy. Anyway, after this first mission goes sideways, we meet Lieutenant Nick Reyes and Nora Salter. In these opening hours, I was happy to witness some solid writing, except for Koch, excellent motion capture, and a really polished presentation. There's plenty of military speak that goes in one ear and out the other, but the performances and relationships kept me engaged from the start. Speaking of relationships, after the introduction, we meet Ethan. He's a lovable robot who's ready to serve his military. It's hard for some people to trust him at first, being a robot and all, but his friendly nature and quick wit win over even the toughest of soldiers.
I will personally vouch for this stiff metal motherfucker! He's one of us! Ethan! What's the Navy's official policy for a gunfight?
Send in the Marines!
There are some fun standout missions, including dogfights in space and fighting terrifying evil robots who have been programmed to kill you, all accompanied by your buds Ethan and Salter. By the way, Reyes and Salter, come on, secret space romance. Everyone else aboard the Retribution space station is important and memorable. At first, they just feel like a crew, but as you see them with more frequency, you build relationships and trade stories. Soon enough, the crew feels more like a family. I think Infinity Ward felt this way too, because the ending credits paid tribute to just about everyone. You get to hear them talk candidly about their lives and experiences in sort of a Dear John style message they individually record, including Ethan, who sadly sacrifices himself for Reyes. Overall, I enjoyed the campaign way more than I thought I would. There were some pacing issues and some strange character development choices, but the gameplay was solid and the relationships you make were simply delightful. That's the last time I let a Call of Duty set in space stop me from giving it a shot. This was one of the biggest surprises of the bunch. 2017 was an important time for me in Call of Duty history. I started my job at GameSpot, but I hadn't played a Call of Duty game in years. However, when I heard that this next title was boots on the ground, I told myself I was in, no matter what. Fortunately for me, it was World War II, developed by Sledgehammer Games. Now, I say fortunately because I love this game, but when I say that, I get some funny looks. And I get it. The series was pushing further into the future. That meant exosuits, cool tech, flashy space weapons, and a blank canvas to create any story they wanted. A World War II game just felt like the opposite of that idea, taking several steps back in the eyes of most fans. Under normal circumstances, I wouldn't want to play another World War II game either, but the stars aligned for me on this one, and I was willing to give anything that wasn't in space a shot.
Welcome to the bloody first. You're a long way from Texas, farm boy.
World War II was the refresh I needed. I spent hours in multiplayer, so much so that I never got around to the campaign. I was addicted to the prestige grind and earning supply drops to get the newest weapon skins. I played war mode for hours, sweating it out to make the push deep into enemy territory, only to get pushed back into my own. I kept putting off the campaign until now, and I'm sad I did because the story is just as good. Right away, you're treated to a quaint and ominous opening aboard the ship with your fellow soldiers. I'm bad with names, so I feared I'd forget everyone's name here entirely. Fortunately, the game does not allow this. This is your crew, the soldiers you fight alongside with throughout the entire campaign, even Josh Duhamel, who's a dick. As the division makes the push onto Normandy, I felt like I was watching a movie about it. The pre-rendered cutscenes are stunning. Not only that, but the dialogue and nervous banter are all believably written. In this vulnerable opening, I felt my stomach curl. I felt like it was taking forever to unload onto the beach, but when it happened, I still wasn't ready. It was after this emotional retelling of D-Day that you feel relieved to see some of your fellow soldiers that made it. It's here afterwards where you can take a moment to control and establish the systems and mechanics that this game has. There's no regenerating health. You can call on your squad mates for scouting, grenades, health packs, and even artillery strikes. On veteran difficulty, utilizing your soldiers like this is a must. It was something new to me, but useful in the majority of the campaign. Speaking of the campaign, this is a massive departure from the first 3 Call of Duty games. Its presentation is beautiful. Everything from the sound design and writing to the score and set pieces, this game is a real treat to the eyes and ears. Any drawbacks I had were from the repetitive nature of some of the tougher levels, and again, I think that's only because I was playing on the veteran difficulty. But it's a Call of Duty game after all, and there are some off-the-wall missions like the train or escaping the clock tower, but they're few and far in between. There was also an espionage mission I wasn't expecting. It plays just like the one in Black Ops Cold War, where you can control what's being said and even blow your cover. In the end, I'm so glad I gave this game a shot back in 2017, and even happier to report that I love the campaign I accidentally skipped over. And even Josh Duhamel. I guess he's not a dick. Before I move on, this is a quick reminder that Black Ops 4 didn't actually have a story mode outside of the training missions. There were some things here and there, but they were weird, like Mason's granddaughter and Woods being an item.
That's why I love you, sweetheart. You make no fucking sense whatsoever.
Oh, piss off.
Anyway, Treyarch was reportedly very rushed with this release, and instead focused on everything that wasn't a campaign. That gave us tons of zombies maps, multiplayer, and of course, Blackout. I only have a few memories with Blackout, but I honestly wasn't into the Battle Royale scene. Not yet, at least. I think I want to give it another chance, but that's a video for another time. Moving on. 2019 was a big year for Call of Duty. Modern Warfare was back with a soft reboot rooted in ultra realism. The campaign's tone was much darker, dealing with the war on bioweaponry and nuclear warfare. Those things aren't new to Call of Duty per se, but if we strip away the high-octane dramatics of the original series, you get this muted, realistic story that couldn't have come at a better time. It was perfect for someone like me who loved Modern Warfare, because I got to watch the series mature and grow into this awesomely realized and updated story. After a chemical attack on London, Captain Price is brought on to find and capture the Wolf, a terrorist leader who takes responsibility for the attacks. Along the way, he teams up with Gaz, Farah, Alex, and others to cover the globe to put a stop to these attacks. The casting for these characters is superb, especially for Captain Price. I love this interview with Infinity Ward's Taylor Kurosaki and Barry Sloan about the audition process, and how picking Barry Sloan to play Captain Price was a no-brainer. He was perfect for the role. As you make your way through the story, you find yourself in several intense situations. Memorable missions like the Piccadilly Circus and Clean House force you to act and react in some dramatic no-win situations. There are also a lot of less is more instances. For example, the mission Clean House only has like 11 enemies. But as a whole, this game is very memorable and replayable. The strong characters, realistic settings, and story accomplish what they set out to do: bring back the Modern Warfare series and live up to the legacy it set more than a decade prior. Modern Warfare 19 was a massive success, so much so that I don't even think they knew what they had. This game made such an impact, and while it got the yearly cycle of support from Infinity Ward and Activision, fans like me were sad to see that support fade away in order for them to move on to other projects. Now, of course this happens. What are you, new? It's Activision. It's the way they've done business for years. But this felt special. Fans agreed that a whole nother year of Modern Warfare support could have worked, but we'll never truly know. Well, at least there's always Modern Warfare 2019 Part 2? Until then, I can't say enough good things about this game. It was the most excited I've been to play a Call of Duty in years. And of course, Warzone was an extension of this. Using the same game engine, weapons, and maps, it was another attempt at a battle royale. An attempt that exploded. Millions of players, COD fans or not, swarmed to Warzone and helped it become one of the biggest free-to-play games ever. Even after the constant issues with download sizes, weapon balancing, hacker accounts, it's still a massive success. One that supports cross-console and cross-gen. It also extended the Warzone story. Admittedly, it was nothing groundbreaking, but hey, if you offer me more Modern Warfare, I will take it. If Modern Warfare 2019 was the steaming hot cup of coffee, then Black Ops Cold War was the cool cup of sweet tea to calm me down. Seeing this cool 80s marketing and trailers got me pretty pumped. And that was because at the time of this announcement, I still hadn't played Black Ops 2 or 3. So seeing familiar faces like Woods, Mason, and Hudson, and no sign of the future was cool. And that's what this game is, cool. It takes elements from the first game like brainwashing and espionage and gives it a fun 80s kick with more vibrancy and even humor.
Not a f***ing word, Bell.
While we go back to the faster paced arcade style of gameplay, it totally works for this game. You're Bell, a CIA operative trying to take down Perseus, a Soviet rebel who hates America and wants to nuke it into the ground. You don't have much to go on, as Perseus works in the shadows. All you have are some shaky leads and this one f***ing picture that burns into your retinas. You and your team sneak around Europe in search of clues and leads, and of course, you're always 2 steps behind. It's not all bad though. Missions always keep you on your toes, and there's plenty of misdirection, intense moments, and decisions to be made. Missions with Woods and Mason are also a real treat. There are even some callbacks to the first Black Ops game, like the snow base and of course, the numbers program. Working alongside Adler is fun too. He's as smooth as the other guys. Smoother if you count the sunglasses. Like seriously, he never takes them off, not even in the espionage mission.
Elevator conversation always gets awkward.
He's a walking man of mystery, and while he's easy to work with, trusting him is another story. The truth is, he can't trust you either. It turns out your character Bell has been brainwashed by Adler and the CIA essentially to help them out like a puppet. You can help Adler and stop Perseus and his massive nuclear launch, or say f it and let America burn and kill everyone. Woods, Mason, Adler, everyone. Playing through this was weird, but it's technically not canon. It's a fun approach to wield this much power and shift the game's ending entirely. Both endings are good and worth exploring, as none of them truly interfere with the original Black Ops series. They've extended this story into multiplayer and Warzone, but naturally the pacing is a lot slower because it's seasonal based. But Cold War as a standalone title is a fun, neon step back into the 80s, with familiar faces and an engaging story, especially for classic Black Ops fans.
If you've made it to this point in the video, I can't thank you enough. Call of Duty has obviously been a huge part of my life for the last 15 years or so, and there are so many creative people to thank for these games and the memories that go with them. But I also did want to thank you guys for watching because this took a lot of time, writing, production, and I don't do this to hear myself talk, I do this to share stories with you guys. So if you have Call of Duty stories of your own, let me know down in the comments. Like this video if you like this video, and I'll see you next time.